what in the world is happening in the world? Trying to make sense of all of it. Why is the world the way it is? Well, I think it's a continuum. It's a big ocean of people, of ideas that maybe has been flowing, if you like, for those who are science-oriented, from the Big Bang. But essentially, the quiet force driving humanity, driving economies, driving the way that we relate with the world, has actually been technology. Politicians come and they go. Governments change, kings reign, but the impact of technology has been that ocean, that river flowing, that has shaped the course of history and will shape the course of history for decades to come. While Silicon Valley and all the technology hubs in the world will celebrate specific technologies, it so happens that the complexity in technology, there is an underlying simplicity in it that is driving it. There are only 5 types of technologies. For those who are familiar with the Abrahamic faiths and the writings of Moses, he will say God created man, male and female, and he blessed them. Be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it, have dominion. These are metaphors for the 4 categories of technologies. So I will call them 5 technological waves that have shaped human destiny and will shape the future to come. So you have fruitfulness. These are your life technologies, where you find medicine, where you find agrotech, fertilizers, chemicals. Then you talk about multiplication. This is your industrial technology. Interchangeable parts and labor that make it possible for you to produce in mass and multiply. Then you have your technologies for, if you're listening, replenishing. This is your financial technology, what is called fintech now. From the very invention of money as a commodity, became paper, and then it disappeared totally. It's now an alert. So if you get alert, now God win. Then you have the next type of technologies that actually have shaped the emergence of nations much more than any other technology, which is your navigation technology, starting from Noah's Ark to US aircraft carriers to SpaceX. Navigation technologies determine who the superpowers are. Whoever dominates that technology controls global trade and determines the course of other nations. It is the reason why US is called the superpower is because they have mastered this technology much more than others. You don't need to have your own navy. If you're an importer here and you ordered a container, the reason why it comes to you safely is because some people are patrolling the seas to make sure that it happens. So this technology is very critical, and any nation that hasn't mastered it tends to lag behind. So you'll understand why we're having challenges with global, because we're yet to master this technology. There's this, the 5th one. You have digital technologies. The technologies that enable you to create symbolic representations of physical objects or ideas and to manipulate them. So a combination of these 5 technologies has been more than any politician responsible for the course of human history and will determine what human history would be all about. Now, these technologies are waves, so they combine what you have seen over time, starting from when the nation state was first born, because before then, what you had were city-states. You didn't have nations like we did now until the 16th century, when Netherlands became the first nation state. and then other nation states started to follow. So these technologies, more or less, have been the ones shaping it. Now, if I tell you, you will have a question in your mind, what about law? And the other things that make society work. Well, I want to submit to you that actually the body of laws is digital technology. What you call the Constitution is your operating system. Now, I'm laying the background because I want to bring it home to explain the reason for the very high unemployment we have as a people. The first speaker talked about 600 million people in Africa who are below 30 years of age. I think 77% of Nigeria's population is below 35 years of age. We have 90 million people of working age, but only 20 million are economically active. This is the reason for the very huge gap between the size of our GDP and the taxes that we collect to run government. So a huge population is both an opportunity, it is always a crisis. Now forget about the statistics. If you don't have a job, the unemployment rate for you is 100%. So we have an army of what I call ninjas. No income, no jobs and assets. And the reason why they are ninjas is because they are neat. They are not in education, they are not in apprenticeship or training. Now the wicked mermaids that they find themselves in are actually a situation. Now for those who are familiar with scientific concepts, there is what is called the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So you're trying to measure two attributes of a point particle. You're trying to measure its mass, you're trying to measure its velocity. And you cannot do both at the same time. So it's a classical problem in physics. Now, a wicked mermaid is its equivalent in the social sciences. When you have multidimensional risk that is wrapped in uncertainty, you have a wicked mermaid. Now, how do you tame ninjas who are in wicked mermaids? The word tame there is not, it's just an acronym. Basically, how do you transition applicants to mainstream economies? So basically, this is what it's all about. Now, it is often said, what you don't, ignorance is bliss. What you don't know will hurt you. No. If you don't know that you are in a wicked mermaid, you will actually think it's either your mother-in-law or some witch in your village that is the actual mermaid. But it's a situation that we have created in our environment that makes it very difficult. So I was very excited when I had, that's why I skipped a part of my presentation, when I had the presentation on becoming. Because for many years, I used to do trainings for all sides of institutions, banks, companies, and so on. But I stopped doing it. And whenever I'm called to do trainings, I said, no, I am tired of death by PowerPoint. You know, so you create slides, you teach people, because it took a lot of depth on my own part to learn the things that I had learned. And the people who could afford it, I didn't see them putting it into use. So I stopped training because it was difficult to see the correlation between training. So I knew something was wrong. It is both a good thing, but it should get you worried, because when you have a situation where only one state produces about 72% of the VAT that is shared by all other states, you have mega cities. When the whole nation is populated by rural areas, small towns, it should get us worried. Because I don't know if you've heard public sector people tell you that the private sector is the engine of growth. Well, it is partially correct, but precisely wrong. It is not the private sector that is the engine of economic growth. It is cities. Cities are the engines of economic growth. This is the reason why people are migrating. They want to go to places where there are more opportunities, so they migrate. For some, they will come from Pangshin to Jos. Some will take the Sahara route, drawn by the glory of Europe and America. So, but people are searching for opportunity. So when you have such, now I need to explain the significance of this. If 70 million people, if you have a backlog of 70 million people, if you need to get jobs for them, you will need to create, thus you hold the number constant. You need to create 3 to 4 million jobs annually, just to hold 70 million. And if you need to decimate it, then you need to create 10 million jobs annually for it. Colossal undertaking. We have capital adequacy issues, but more importantly, we have not become the type of people, society, that knows how to deploy capital, to allocate it. So we have a serious capital allocation challenge. So what you see about creating jobs is mostly tokenism. Now, there are about 8 human settlements that you will find generally in every society, except for very advanced countries like Germany that urbanized completely since 1890. You will find a city, multimodal transportation hub. You will find a large town. You will find a small town. You will find a village that is very proximate to either of these 3. Then you will find another type of village that is the source of, say, raw materials, whether agricultural or mineral. And then you will find some that are very far, some other villages that are very far from this. So no infrastructure, they are not connected to the network of productivity enhancing infrastructure. So if you want to create jobs, you need to understand 5 dynamics. The inequality that you see, before you used to talk about the haves and the have-nots. But if you look at the list of billionaires, you need to talk about the have-nots and the have-yots. Because a very good percentage, as of 2016, global GDP was about $78 trillion. If you divide this per capita, is $16,000 for the 7.7 billion people on the earth. But why is it that some have yachts and some are barely scraping by? The reason is hidden in this settlement patterns. It's very difficult for you to file a patent when you're living in a village. So when you look at the GDP numbers that are growing, it is a good thing, but we should be alarmed because inequality is spreading. And the more unequal, as Bob Marley will say, then every day is war. So it's important to understand the dimensions of inequality. Inequality has 5 dimensions. You need to understand it's hydra-headed. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to create the right type of policies as a government, national government, or as a city, or as a company, how to convert this mass of population into opportunities. 1, there is inequality in productivity. The reason why we are challenged economically is not that the poor are poor. This one is known. It's a given. The reason is that our elite are not as productive as their counterparts in OECD. So we have an inequality gap in productivity. And you measure productivity by time, by cost, by quality, and by flexibility. Now, recall we started out about the 5 technologies. Basically, this is what technology helps you to do. It either reduces the time it takes you to do something, or it speeds up the time when you want to travel, or you want to produce. There's always an element of time. Quality is important. I mean, just imagine getting to a Japanese and saying to him, can you make a fake Honda for me? If he doesn't feel insulted, he will be dumbfounded because he doesn't know how to do substandard things anymore. Because quality has been programmed into their genes. We are yet to attain that level of consciousness. And flexibility talks about variety and kind. The second type of inequality is inequality in opportunities. Where you live, to a large extent, will determine the opportunities available for you. to either go to school or access to healthcare, life-saving drugs, the benefits of technology. Third type of inequality that you will see is inequality in income, which is what usually the most talked about. Oh, there are 11 million Nigerians, that is NBS statistics, living below the poverty line. Then you have inequality in wealth. You know, poverty is transmissible, it's a communication disease. You can transmit from one generation to the next. The same thing with wealth. And then finally, you have inequality, spatial inequality. So the submission here is, if we need to do something about it, I want to introduce a concept, basically, that I call the white ocean. Those of us who are familiar with, we're in a business school environment, are usually familiar with the blue ocean. But if we need to make progress, we need to go beyond the blue ocean. Those who did some elements of science in secondary school will tell you about Roy beef. So there are more numbers beyond blue. But what really is the blue ocean? Or really, what is the going beyond the blue ocean? Digitization as a technology, by the process of combinatorial evolution, is aggregating all of the other technologies into the digital realm. So the 7 human settlement patterns have been taken into the digital domain. So your city is now the data center and your village is now your mobile phone. So anything you are designing, be conscious of this. Otherwise, I will repeat this proverb: if you have a headache and you decide to comb your hair, you are very close to the problem, but very far from the solution. Thank you.